In the vast, sun-scorched sands of Egypt, a skyline of stone giants pierces the horizon. These are the pyramids of Giza, timeless monuments to ambition, power, and the eternal. Among them stands a pyramid that, while not the largest, possesses a unique and commanding presence. It belonged to a king named Khafre. He was the fourth ruler of the fourth dynasty. This was a time of unparalleled architectural achievement during the early Old Kingdom. The era, roughly 2700 to 2200 BC, marks the pinnacle of pyramid building, and Khafre was at its heart. Khafre's story is deeply intertwined with the most famous names of his dynasty. He was the son of the great king Khufu, the man who commissioned the Great Pyramid. He did not, however, immediately follow his famous father. Instead, he succeeded his brother, a ruler named Djoser, whose own reign is something of an enigma. When Khafre eventually ascended to become the Horus, the living god on earth, he inherited a kingdom at the height of its power and a legacy of monumental construction that he was destined to continue, and, in many ways, perfect. Our journey today delves into the life and legacy of this remarkable pharaoh. We will explore the world he inhabited, divine kingship, intricate religious beliefs, an obsession with securing a glorious afterlife. We will investigate the royal family, brothers, wives, children. The narrative of Khafre is not merely one of a distant king. It is a story etched in stone, a testament to a civilization's capacity to organize, to engineer, and to believe. His reign was not just a continuation of his father's, it was a distinct chapter in the story of the Old Kingdom. This exploration will take us deep into the Giza plateau, the royal necropolis that Khafre helped define. The core of our investigation lies with Khafre's pyramid, a structure that seems to challenge its larger neighbour for dominance due to its placement on higher ground. We will dissect its construction, massive limestone blocks quarried on site, the fine polished casing that once made it gleam like a brilliant white star. How was such a colossal undertaking organized? What workforce was required to move millions of tons of stone with such precision? These questions take us into the heart of Old Kingdom logistics, Old Kingdom society, Old Kingdom engineering, revealing a state with immense control over its resources and its people. Beyond the main pyramid itself, we will uncover the full extent of Khafre's funerary complex. This was not a standalone monument, but an intricate network of sacred buildings, each with a specific purpose in the king's journey to the afterlife. We will walk through the ruins of his valley temple, situated by the ancient Nile harbour, where the king's body would have been received and purified. From there, a long covered causeway led uphill to the mortuary temple, standing in the shadow of the pyramid's eastern face. Here, daily rituals and offerings would have been performed by a dedicated priesthood for centuries after Khafre's death, ensuring his eternal sustenance. Our inquiry will then turn to the most enigmatic figure on the plateau, the Great Sphinx. Carved from a single outcrop of bedrock, this monumental sculpture is a wonder of the ancient world. The prevailing theory links it directly to Khafre, suggesting the face of the Sphinx is a portrait of the king himself, acting as a guardian for his pyramid complex. Finally, we will trace the long and complex history of Khafre's legacy through the ages. We will consider the accounts of ancient Greek historians like Herodotus, who recorded tales of the pyramid builders centuries after they lived. We will also look at how modern science, through techniques like cosmic ray muon scanning, is attempting to peer inside the pyramid's solid mass to search for hidden chambers. From the ancient looters who violated his tomb to the modern archaeologists who pieced together his story, Khafre's monument continues to be a source of endless fascination, a puzzle in stone that still holds many of its secrets. To understand Khafre, we must first understand his bloodline. He was born into the very heart of Egypt's most powerful family, the royal house of the Fourth Dynasty. His father was none other than Khufu, the pharaoh whose name is synonymous with the Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest and most ambitious construction project of the Old Kingdom. To be the son of such a monumental figure was to be born in the shadow of greatness, with an immense legacy to uphold. His mother is believed to be Queen Henutsen, one of Khufu's wives. Her position as a royal mother granted her significant status, and she was later honored with her own small pyramid next to Khufu's colossal monument. Khafre was one of many children sired by Khufu. He had numerous brothers and half-brothers, each a potential rival or ally in the complex world of court politics. Among his most notable siblings was his elder half-brother, Djedefre. Djedefre took the throne immediately after their father's death. This shows succession wasn't simply eldest son inheritance. The sons of Khufu's various queens competed for who would wear the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. Another important brother was Kawab, once considered Khufu's eldest son and heir apparent. Kawab predeceased his father, opening the way for others to claim the throne. Khafre also had sisters, who were key figures in consolidating power through marriage. Royal women were vital links in the chain of legitimacy. Their unions helped solidify bonds between branches of the royal family. He grew up surrounded by his father's pyramid, a constant, overwhelming reminder of royal duty. He would have been educated as a prince, trained in governance, religion, and warfare. He learned that kingship was a divine mandate to maintain Ma'at, truth, justice, and cosmic harmony. His family was the vessel of that divine power, and his place within it set him on a path to become master of Giza himself. A pharaoh's power was not just reflected in his monuments, but also in the size and structure of his family. For Khafre, his marriages were strategic alliances. His principal wife was Queen Meresank III. She was a figure of immense importance, not least because she was his own niece. This marriage between uncle and niece was a common practice to keep the royal bloodline pure. Khafre had several other wives. Amenhotep I was the mother of his heir, Menkaure. Another wife, Persenet, is known from her tomb near Khafre's pyramid. From these unions, Khafre fathered a considerable number of children, at least 12 sons and 3 daughters. His sons held high-ranking positions in the state administration and the priesthood: viziers, overseers of works, high priests. The entire royal household was a complex and carefully managed institution. It was the engine of the dynasty, reinforcing the divine nature of the king. Khafre's family was not just a personal matter, it was the foundation of his state. Khafre's path to kingship was not immediate. Upon Khufu's death, the throne passed to his brother Djedefre. Djedefre broke with dynasty tradition. He built at Abu Rawash, not Giza. Some see a family dispute, others see religious motives. Djedefre's reign was short, perhaps about a decade. His pyramid was left unfinished, suggesting a sudden death. Upon Djedefre's death, the throne returned to the Giza line. Khafre became king. Khafre's succession reconnected the dynasty to Khufu and to Giza. He built his pyramid beside Khufu's Great Pyramid, a visible claim to legacy. Ancient sources claim 66 years, likely an exaggeration. Archaeological dating, inscriptions marking cattle counts, point to about 24 to 26 years. As pharaoh, Khafre was more than a mere mortal king. He was considered a living god, the earthly incarnation of the Falcon god Horus. His Horus name was User-ib, strong of heart. His throne name, Khafre, means he appears like Ra. It linked him explicitly to the rising cult of the sun god. Khafre presided over a highly centralized, efficient state. He commanded the nation's economy. He commanded its labor. He commanded its resources. That control made the Giza monuments possible. He commissioned works elsewhere. His name appears at Byblos, evidence of long-distance trade and diplomacy. He secured raw materials like high-quality timber for the Bronze Age economy. His reign wasn't just his father's continuation. It was the confident, masterful expression of a king at the zenith of his power. He placed his monument on a bedrock foundation slightly higher than that of his father's Great Pyramid. This clever positioning creates a powerful optical illusion. From many vantage points, Khafre's pyramid appears to be the taller of the two. Its final height was approximately 143.5 meters. What truly sets Khafre's pyramid apart is its steeper angle of incline. This steeper slope contributes to its illusion of greater height. One of the most distinctive features is the remnant of its original polished casing. This gives us a precious glimpse of how these pyramids would have originally appeared, not as the rough, tiered structures we see today, but as smooth, gleaming white mountains. When the sun struck this polished surface, the pyramid would have shone with a brilliant divine light. The capstone may have been gilded with electrum, catching the first and last rays of the sun. The core of Khafre's pyramid is a testament to Old Kingdom efficiency, built from huge limestone blocks quarried on the Giza plateau. The builders carved the first two courses directly from the living bedrock. First, it made an incredibly solid, level base. Second, shaping the bedrock saved huge amounts of labor and material. Over the rough core, they laid a casing of fine white Tura limestone. The lowest casing course was red granite from Aswan. The material mix was structural and aesthetic, meant to inspire awe. The exact method is still debated. Most accepted theory, ramps. Regardless of design, immense human effort was required. Teams hauled heavy blocks on wooden sledges up ramps. Unlike the complex interior of his father's Great Pyramid, Khafre's pyramid is far simpler. The pyramid has two separate entrances. This dual-entry design has puzzled Egyptologists. Both entrances lead to descending passages. The two passages merge into a single horizontal corridor that leads to the heart of the pyramid, the king's final resting place. The burial chamber itself is a masterpiece of engineering. It is carved out of the solid bedrock, but roofed with massive, gabled limestone beams to support the immense weight above. The focus of the room is the king's sarcophagus, a single block of black granite. When the Italian explorer Giovanni Belzoni entered the pyramid in 1818, the lid of the granite sarcophagus had been broken and pushed aside. The sarcophagus itself was empty. He famously inscribed his name and the date in soot on the chamber wall, a mark that is still visible today. Just east of the pyramid stood Khafre's Valley Temple. This remarkable structure served as the ceremonial entrance to the entire pyramid complex, where the king's body would have been received for the intricate rituals of purification and mummification. The temple's floor plan was a masterpiece. The main hall, a stunning T-shaped chamber, remains one of the best preserved structures from the entire Old Kingdom. Arranged along the walls were 23 statue bases. The famous diorite statue of Khafre, with the Horus falcon, was discovered buried in a pit within this very temple. From the valley temple, a covered causeway stretched westwards to the mortuary temple. This was the liturgical heart of the entire complex, where the daily cult for the deceased king would be performed. Looming beside Khafre's causeway is the most enigmatic monument on the Giza plateau, the Great Sphinx. It was not built by assembling blocks, but was carved directly from a single massive outcrop of bedrock. The overwhelming scholarly consensus attributes the carving of the Great Sphinx to the reign of Khafre. The Sphinx is perfectly situated as a guardian figure. The style of the Sphinx temple is architecturally identical. The most debated piece of evidence is the face of the Sphinx itself. This further solidifies the argument that this is not a generic being, but a representation of a specific king, the divine ruler Khafre, guarding his own eternal resting place. Despite the strong evidence, some fringe theories have proposed alternative origins. However, these geological arguments have been widely refuted by mainstream geologists and archaeologists. In the 21st century, the quest to understand Khafre's pyramid has entered the realm of high-energy physics. In 2017, the Scan Pyramids project employed a cutting-edge technique known as muon tomography. Muons are subatomic particles. By placing highly sensitive muon detectors inside and around the pyramid, scientists can create a three-dimensional image of its internal density structure. After a thorough analysis, the scan of Khafre's monument revealed no evidence of any large unknown voids or hidden chambers. The mystery was not in what was there, but in what was not. Modern science has confirmed that the secrets of Khafre's pyramid are not hidden in unseen rooms, but are instead written in the architecture of its temples, the face of the Sphinx, and the sheer solid power of the monument itself. In the grand tapestry of ancient Egyptian history, Khafre stands as a figure of immense significance. His pyramid complex was not merely a tomb, it was a carefully orchestrated statement of divine authority. The integration of these elements into a single flowing architectural and ritualistic journey was a masterstroke. This model became the standard blueprint for royal funerary monuments in the Old Kingdom. In later periods, the memory of the actual king faded. Historians like Herodotus recorded distorted tales of tyrannical kings, a reality far more complex than Greek legends. The rediscovery of Khafre's complex in the modern era marked a new chapter. For the first time in millennia, we could look upon a face that was, with high probability, his own. No reflection on Khafre is complete without considering his profound connection to the Great Sphinx. The statue's placement as a guardian figure within Khafre's sacred precinct firmly anchors the Sphinx in the Fourth Dynasty. In this interpretation, the king himself, in the powerful form of a lion, forever watches over his own funerary complex, facing the rising sun in an act of perpetual worship and rebirth. While fringe theories provide romantic alternatives, the scholarly consensus holds firm, placing the Sphinx squarely in the shadow of Khafre's pyramid. The evidence strongly suggests that this magnificent creature is his creation, his guardian, and his portrait. He sought to conquer eternity by building a mountain of stone. He could never have imagined his success would lie not just in stone, but in the enduring power of his creation to inspire wonder, provoke debate, and drive our unending quest to understand the past. Imagine standing in the vast sun-scorched desert of Egypt. The wind whispers secrets of millennia past, carrying grains of sand. Before you stands a structure unlike any other, a colossal staircase reaching towards the heavens. This is not one of the smooth-sided pyramids of Giza. This is older, the Pyramid of Djoser, a revolutionary leap in human history and architecture. In the Saqqara necropolis, it is a silent storyteller. Weathered stones tell a tale of ambition and innovation. For nearly 4,700 years it has stood, a reminder of the Third Dynasty. It marks the moment when massive stone building became possible. Before this, royal tombs were simple mastabas of mud brick. Djoser shattered that tradition and created the blueprint for future pyramids. It wasn't just a tomb, it was a resurrection machine. 6 stepped layers rise over 60 meters, a ladder to the celestial realm. The structure was the heart of a vast complex dedicated to the king's eternal life. Temples, courtyards, dummy buildings, and for the first time an entire complex built entirely of stone. Now we begin our journey back in time. We'll uncover the story of this monument. We'll explore the pharaoh with a grand vision. We'll explore the genius architect who brought it to life. We'll delve into the secrets of construction. We'll examine the challenges faced by its builders. We'll trace the legacy it left behind. The Pyramid of Djoser is the starting point of the Pyramid Age, the grandparent of all pyramids. Its story, audacious dreams realized in stone, still captivating us today. Before the Pyramid of Djoser pierced the Egyptian sky, the final resting places of pharaohs were markedly different. For centuries, kings were buried in mastabas, rectangular, flat-roof structures made primarily of sun-dried mud bricks. The word mastaba is Arabic for stone bench, and these tombs resembled just that, large, simple benches sitting upon the desert sand. They were functional, protecting the deceased and their worldly possessions for the afterlife. However, they lacked the monumental scale and divine symbolism that would come to define the pyramids. Below the mastaba's superstructure, a deep shaft led to a subterranean burial chamber where the pharaoh was laid to rest. The structure above ground contained chapels and rooms for offerings, allowing the living to honor the king's spirit. While some mastabas were impressive, they were bound by the limitations of their materials. Mud brick was perishable, susceptible to erosion and decay over time. The dream of a truly eternal home had not yet been fully realized in stone. The transition to a towering stone pyramid was not just architectural evolution, it was a profound ideological shift. It changed how Egyptians viewed the king's connection to the gods. The pharaoh was seen as a divine intermediary, a link between the earthly and the celestial. A grander, more permanent tomb was needed to reflect this elevated status and aid the king's ascent to the stars. The idea of stacking mastabas to create a stairway was both literal and symbolic. This required a bold vision and mastery of new technologies and organization. Building with massive stone blocks was a different challenge than mud bricks. It demanded a large, skilled workforce, sophisticated quarrying techniques, and an unprecedented level of planning and engineering. The construction of Djoser's pyramid was a national project, mobilizing resources across the kingdom. It forever altered Egyptian architecture and set a new standard for royal monuments. The story of the first pyramid begins with two remarkable individuals, a visionary pharaoh and his brilliant architect. The pharaoh was Nefertiti, more famously known as Djoser. He ruled around 2670 BCE as the first king of the Third Dynasty. Djoser's reign brought stability and prosperity. It marked the start of the Old Kingdom, a golden age of achievement. Djoser wanted a tomb to secure his afterlife and to proclaim his divine authority on earth. To build it, he turned to his trusted official, Imhotep. Imhotep was no ordinary courtier, a true polymath serving as Djoser's vizier, chief minister, and as high priest of Ra at Heliopolis. He was skilled in medicine, writing, and administration. But his architectural talent is what made him immortal. Imhotep is considered the first named architect in history. He conceived and executed the plan for the world's first large-scale stone building. The original idea was conventional, a large, square mastaba built of stone instead of mud brick. That was already innovative, far more durable and impressive. But Imhotep didn't stop there. The project evolved through stages. He enlarged the mastaba, then began stacking smaller mastabas on top. Layer after layer, each smaller than the one below, until a six-stepped pyramid emerged. Archaeologists can still trace that evolution today. It shows experimentation and daring innovation. Imhotep was inventing monumental stone architecture as he worked, solving engineering problems with no precedent. The result was more than a tomb, a landmark of human ingenuity. A structure that seemed to reach for the divine, cementing the legacies of Djoser, the king, and Imhotep, the genius who made it real. The construction of the step pyramid began with a monumental task, sourcing and moving an immense quantity of stone. The primary material for the core was locally quarried limestone, but a much finer, higher quality white limestone was chosen for the outer casing. This brilliant white stone came from Tura, on the opposite bank of the Nile. Tura limestone was prized for purity and brightness. It would make the pyramid gleam. Transporting these massive blocks, some weighing several tons, was a formidable challenge. Egyptians used wooden sledges dragged by teams of men. To reduce friction, workers likely wetted the sand in front of the sledge. The scale is difficult to comprehend. It's estimated about 850,000 tons of stone were moved. It was an unprecedented logistical feat overseen by Imhotep. He coordinated the quarrying teams, the boat crews on the Nile, and the hundreds of labourers dragging the sledges across the sand. Once the stone arrived at Saqqara, the next great challenge was to lift it into place. For the lower levels, workers likely used earthen ramps or rubble ramps, which they built up against the side of the structure. A key innovation was the method of laying the stones. Instead of horizontal courses, the builders laid them in courses that were angled inwards, leaning against a central core. This technique, known as accretion, added stability. While direct evidence is scarce, it is theorized that the builders may have used short, straight ramps for the lower levels and perhaps a more sophisticated system of spiraling ramps for the upper tiers. Beneath the pyramid, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers was excavated from the living rock, creating a complex subterranean world for the king. This network included the central burial chamber located at the bottom of a 28-metre deep shaft. as well as galleries for storing funerary goods, and a series of rooms decorated with beautiful blue faience tiles meant to represent the king's palace in the afterlife. The builders of the step pyramid were not slaves, but skilled Egyptian labourers and craftsmen. Many were likely farmers who worked on the construction project during the annual Nile flood. The construction of the step pyramid required a wide range of skills. Quarrymen, boatmen, teams of haulers, stonemasons, toolmakers, engineers, artists and craftsmen, potters and scribes. It was a mobilization of the entire nation's talent. The successful completion of the step pyramid was not just an architectural triumph, but also a triumph of human organization. The pyramid was a symbol of national pride, a project built by a nation for its king and its gods. The step pyramid was the magnificent centerpiece of a much larger vision, a sprawling 15-hectare complex that served as an eternal city for the spirit of King Djoser. This vast enclosure was surrounded by a massive niched limestone wall that stretched for more than 1.6 kilometers and stood over 10 meters high. It was punctuated by 14 imposing gateways, yet only one of these was a true entrance. The other 13 were false doors, intended for the king's spirit, or Ka. This single, functional entrance led visitors through a narrow, colonnaded passageway, creating a dramatic, controlled approach, heightening the sense of mystery and reverence. Imhotep designed this space as a stage for eternal royal ceremonies. He created a stone microcosm of Egypt, with buildings representing the administrative centers of Upper and Lower Egypt. This was a powerful political and religious statement. These buildings are remarkable for Imhotep's innovative use of stone to mimic more fragile materials. The columns of the House of the North are carved to resemble papyrus stalks, a symbol of Lower Egypt. The columns of the House of the South are shaped like the single white lily, a symbol of Upper Egypt. Beneath the entire complex, an astonishing network of tunnels, shafts and chambers was carved out of the bedrock. Archaeologists have discovered over 40,000 stone vessels in these tunnels, many inherited from Djoser's ancestors. The most stunning discovery is the blue chambers. The walls are lined with thousands of beautiful blue faience tiles, arranged to imitate reed mat hangings. These chambers were meant to be the pharaoh's eternal palace, a secret, hidden paradise designed to last for all time. The Pyramid of Djoser was more than just a single spectacular achievement. It was a revolutionary prototype that created the blueprint for all pyramids to come. The most significant evolutionary step came with Pharaoh Sneferu. His bent pyramid is a perfect example. The builders started at a steep angle but were forced to change it, likely due to signs of structural instability. Undeterred, Sneferu commissioned a second pyramid nearby, the Red Pyramid. This time they got it right. The world's first successful, true, smooth-sided pyramid. The culmination of this architectural evolution is the Great Pyramid of Giza, built by Khufu. This colossal monument would not have been possible without the lessons learned from Djoser's pyramid. For centuries, its secrets were buried. But one man would redefine our view. French architect and Egyptologist Jean-Philippe Loewe. Beginning in 1926, he painstakingly excavated, studied and reconstructed the complex. More recent discoveries added new chapters. In 2020, after a lengthy restoration, the southern tomb opened to the public for the first time. One remarkable discovery was not a structure but a person. In the subterranean galleries, Lauer found seal impressions of Djoser's name and seal impressions of his vizier, Imhotep. Finding the architect's name alongside the king's confirmed Imhotep's central role. Imhotep's idea of translating organic forms into stone became a standard feature of Egyptian temple architecture. The reverence for Djoser and Imhotep themselves became a significant part of Egypt's cultural legacy. Today, nearly 4,700 years after its construction, the Pyramid of Djoser continues to captivate and inspire. It is the starting point, the origin story of Egypt's most iconic monuments, and a timeless icon of human creativity. It is a monument that tells a story of faith, power, and the extraordinary potential of human ingenuity. A story that continues to resonate with us across nearly 5 millennia, reminding us of the enduring power of a bold dream. Who was the man whose ambitions shaped the dawn of Egypt's Pyramid Age? Djoser, enigmatic king of the Third Dynasty. At the threshold of recorded history, his legacy towers above the sands, yet his life remains shrouded in mystery. Born Neteriket, meaning divine of body, he inherited a kingdom poised for transformation. Likely son of Pharaoh Khafre and Queen Amenhotep, ascending around 2670 BCE. His reign broke with the past, launching the Old Kingdom, Egypt's first golden age. Djoser's rule was innovation. He moved the royal necropolis to Saqqara, leaving the old burial ground at Abydos. There he commissioned the Step Pyramid, a monument unlike anything before. Beyond stone, inscriptions show him as a builder, a lawgiver, a living god, protector of the people and holder of divine favor. He led campaigns into Sinai, securing resources and widening Egypt's influence. Central is his partnership with Imhotep, vizier, architect, high priest. Their names appear side by side in inscriptions, a rare sign of trust. Art and inscription show a commanding, pious ruler. Statues from his mortuary complex show serenity and resolve, draped in the seed festival cloak. Subterranean reliefs show him performing rituals for the gods. Legends credit him with averting famine and restoring temples. The famine stela later cements his image as a bringer of abundance. Material evidence, statues, seal impressions, foundation tablets, tangible anchors to his story. Questions remain. How long did he reign? Nearly 30 years, or much less. Founder of the Third Dynasty, or a powerful successor? Father of Sekhemkhet, or predecessor? Still, his impact is clear. He set the pharaonic template, religious authority, military might, the Step Pyramid, tomb, and a statement of divine kingship, prototype for all pyramids to come. Today, Djoser is man and myth, a visionary whose dreams reshaped a civilization, his legacy in stone, sand, and story. The Old Kingdom, often called the Age of the Pyramids, stands as a beacon in the story of civilization. For nearly 5 centuries, from 2686 to 2181 BCE, Egypt flourished under a single, powerful government. This era was marked by extraordinary political stability, as pharaohs ruled as living gods, and the Nile's rhythm brought order to life and death. Monumental pyramids and temples rose from the desert, their white limestone gleaming in the sun, symbols of ambition and divine authority. The heart of the Old Kingdom beat in Memphis, the capital, where a centralized bureaucracy managed resources with precision, grain, gold and labor, enabling feats of construction that still defy belief. It was an age of monumental ambition, and the Step Pyramid at Saqqara was only the beginning. Soon, the Great Pyramids of Giza would pierce the sky, built by tens of thousands of skilled workers, engineers, masons and artists, each contributing to the pharaoh's immortal legacy. But the Old Kingdom was more than stone and spectacle. It was a vibrant society, alive with artisans carving serene statues, scribes at their scrolls, fishermen casting nets along the Nile, and families feasting by the riverbanks. Faith and artistry flourished. Columns soared like papyrus stalks, tombs shimmered with painted reliefs, and the earliest hieroglyphic texts adorned sacred walls. Advances in mathematics, medicine, and administration set foundations for centuries to come. Here, social order and artistic harmony shaped Egypt and the imagination of the world. The ideals of unity, vision, and innovation were woven into daily life, creating a civilization whose influence would echo through time. Even as the dynasty waned and new powers rose, the ideals forged in this golden age would inspire generations, an enduring legacy carved in stone and memory. The Old Kingdom's influence is seen in divine kingship, social order, and artistic harmony, shaping Egypt and the imagination of the world. Its monuments, inscriptions, and innovations remind us that from unity and vision, civilizations rise and endure. The story of the Old Kingdom is a testament to the enduring power of human creativity and the timeless quest for greatness. Beneath the endless Egyptian sky, the step pyramid of Djoser rises from the sands, its ancient tiers watching over the necropolis of Saqqara. Here, in this sacred ground, pharaohs, priests and visionaries found their eternal rest, surrounded by tombs, temples, and the silent echoes of a civilization's dreams. Saqqara is more than a resting place. It is a living testament to humanity's quest for meaning and immortality. Today, it forms a vital part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site known as Memphis and its necropolis. This designation marks Saqqara and the Step Pyramid as treasures not only of Egypt, but of the entire world. UNESCO's emblem stands as a promise that the wonders of Saqqara will be protected, studied and cherished for generations yet to come. As visitors walk among these stones, they join a story that spans millennia, a story of innovation, a story of faith, and a story of enduring hope. The Step Pyramid, once the heart of a pharaoh's vision, now stands as a beacon for all humanity. Its preservation is a shared responsibility, a reminder that our past is the foundation for our future. Let us celebrate Saqqara, honor its legacy, and ensure that the wisdom and wonder of ancient Egypt continue to inspire the world, today and forever. For 3 millennia, the civilization of ancient Egypt flourished along the fertile banks of the River Nile. It was a land of remarkable continuity, unified under the singular rule of a divine king, the pharaoh. This political stability came from Egypt's unique geography. The Nile, a predictable, life-giving artery, was the heart of the nation. It provided water and rich silt, sustaining agriculture and allowing surpluses. Those surpluses supported a complex state. They supported a priesthood and, when necessary, a formidable army. Surrounding this ribbon of green was a natural fortress. To the east, vast, inhospitable desert. To the west, the same punishing wasteland, the Red Land, sun-scorched and unforgiving. To the south, the Nile is interrupted by rocky rapids, the cataracts, barriers to naval traffic and invasion from Nubia. To the north, the great expanse of the Mediterranean Sea, a major obstacle in this era. This geographical isolation was the cornerstone of Egyptian security. It shaped the mindset and military doctrine for centuries. For much of early history, the primary concern was defense, not conquest. The goal: keep enemies out. Maintain the integrity of the borders, preserve the sacred order, ma'at. So the military became a defensive instrument to patrol the frontiers, to quell internal dissent, and to protect trade routes bringing valuable goods. The deserts were frontiers to be guarded against nomads, and the southern border with Nubia needed constant vigilance and imposing fortresses. Thus, the Egyptian military evolved slowly and reactively, driven by threats rather than grand expansion. It existed to secure the two lands, Upper Egypt, Lower Egypt. It acted as the pharaoh's strong arm to enforce his will and protect the people. The army's structure, its weaponry, its tactics, all shaped by a defensive posture. The story of how Egypt fought is inseparable from the story of the land itself, a civilization blessed by geography, defending its precious world from outsiders. The history of ancient Egypt spans an immense period, traditionally divided by historians into distinct kingdoms and intermediate periods. These divisions are not arbitrary. They reflect significant shifts in political power, cultural expression, and, crucially, military organization. Our journey begins around 3100 BC with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, marking the dawn of the Old Kingdom. During this age of pyramid builders, the military was a relatively simple affair. It consisted mainly of local levies called up by regional governors or nomarchs to serve the pharaoh in specific campaigns. They served primarily to secure borders, protect mining expeditions in the Sinai, and conduct raids into neighbouring Nubia to the south. Following the collapse of central authority at the end of the Old Kingdom, Egypt descended into a period of fragmentation known as the First Intermediate Period. During this time, regional warlords battled for supremacy, and the unified military of the pharaoh ceased to exist. The reunification of Egypt, heralding the start of the Middle Kingdom, was achieved through military conquest. The pharaohs of this new era learned the lessons of the past, establishing a professional, centrally controlled standing army to prevent such a collapse from ever happening again. The most dramatic transformation, however, came with the dawn of the new kingdom. This era was born from another period of foreign invasion and occupation by the Hyksos, a people from Western Asia who introduced revolutionary military technologies, the horse-drawn chariot and the powerful composite bow. After expelling the Hyksos, the Egyptian pharaohs adopted and perfected these new tools of war. They abandoned their traditional defensive posture and embarked on an age of unprecedented imperial expansion. The Egyptian military machine was reforged into an aggressive, professional fighting force, creating an empire that stretched from Nubia deep into the Near East, clashing with the Mitanni, clashing with the Hittite Empire. Over the course of this documentary, we will trace this remarkable evolution. We will explore the armies of the Old and Middle Kingdoms, with their simple infantry formations and defensive fortifications. We will then delve into the powerful combined arms military of the New Kingdom. We will examine its elite chariot corps, its organized infantry divisions, and its sophisticated logistical support. We will discuss the iconic weapons they wielded, the Kopesh sickle sword, the composite bow, and witness some of their most famous campaigns, including the legendary Battle of Kadesh. This is the story of how a nation, protected by the desert, built an army that first defended a kingdom and then forged an empire. During the Old Kingdom, the era famous for the construction of the Great Pyramids at Giza, the Egyptian military was a far cry from the imperial force it would later become. Its structure was fundamentally tied to the civilian administration of the state. There was no large, permanent, standing army in the modern sense. Instead, the pharaoh relied on a system of local levies. When a military campaign was required, the central government would issue a decree, and the regional governors, known as nomarchs, were responsible for mustering a quota of able-bodied men from the towns and villages under their jurisdiction. These recruits were ordinary farmers, craftsmen and labourers temporarily conscripted from their daily lives to serve the king. The most common military operations were police actions along Egypt's frontiers. Expeditions were regularly sent into the Sinai Peninsula to protect the state's valuable turquoise and copper mining operations from incursions by local Bedouin tribes. To the south, campaigns were launched into Nubia, not for outright conquest, but to secure trade routes, acquire exotic goods like ivory and gold, and to capture prisoners who could be brought back to Egypt as a source of labour. The equipment of these early soldiers was simple and effective for its purpose. The standard infantryman was armed with a long wooden spear tipped with copper or flint, and often carried a large, cowhide-covered wooden shield for protection. For closer engagements, he might wield a stone-headed mace or a copper battle-axe. Body armour was virtually non-existent, with most soldiers fighting in little more than a simple linen kilt. The famous Palermo stone, an ancient royal annal, records military actions from the earliest dynasties. It even records a campaign by King Sneferu that reportedly brought back 7,000 prisoners and 200,000 head of cattle from Nubia. However, this reliance on regional nomarchs to raise troops contained a critical weakness. The power of the central government depended entirely on the loyalty of these provincial leaders, a loyalty that would eventually falter and plunge Egypt into chaos. The magnificent stability of the Old Kingdom could not last forever. Towards the end of the Sixth Dynasty, around 2181 BC, the central authority of the pharaoh began to crumble. A combination of factors, including prolonged low Nile floods leading to famine, the immense cost of pyramid building and the growing power of the provincial nomarchs, led to the collapse of the state. As the power of the king in Memphis waned, the nomarchs, who had once been loyal governors, transformed into independent regional warlords. Egypt splintered into competing city-states, ushering in the First Intermediate Period. Warfare became endemic to the Nile Valley. Tomb biographies of local magnates, such as Ankhtifi of Hierakonpolis, are filled with boasts of their military prowess. They claimed to have fed their people when others starved and defended their domains in a fragmented land where military strength meant survival. Recruitment of foreign mercenaries increased, particularly Nubian archers. Known for their skill with the bow, Medjay warriors were highly sought after, adding a deadly element to Egyptian battlefields. Disunity ended through military force. From Thebes, a powerful family, the Intefs and Mentuhoteps of the 11th dynasty, began a long campaign to reunite the two lands. They systematically defeated their northern rivals, the rulers of Heracleopolis, in a protracted conflict that lasted for decades. Final victory by Mentuhotep II, around 2055 BC, was a triumph of military organization. He crushed the opposition, re-established a single government over Egypt, ending the First Intermediate Period and inaugurating the Middle Kingdom. The lessons of this civil war would not be forgotten. The new kingdom was born from a national struggle for liberation. The humiliating occupation of northern Egypt by the Hyksos during the Second Intermediate Period had shattered the traditional Egyptian sense of security and invincibility. When the Theban princes, beginning with Seqenenre-Tao and culminating with Ahmose I, finally drove the foreign rulers out of the Nile Delta, they did so with a newfound military zeal. The Egyptians realized that their natural desert barriers were no longer sufficient protection. The old defensive doctrine was cast aside and replaced by an aggressive new strategy of preemptive action and imperial expansion. The New Kingdom pharaohs established Egypt's first truly professional national standing army. This was a permanent institution, highly organized, well-funded by the state, and offering a viable and respectable career path for ambitious young men. At its head was the pharaoh, who was now portrayed primarily as a supreme warrior king, personally leading his troops into battle. The army itself was organized into large divisions, named after the great gods of the state, Amun, Ra, Ptah, and Set. Each division was a self-contained combined arms force of around 5,000 men, comprising multiple regiments of infantry and squadrons of chariots. While conscription continued to supply the bulk of the infantry, many men volunteered for service, drawn by the promise of steady pay, land grants upon retirement, and a share of the spoils of war. The military revolution of the New Kingdom was driven by two transformative technologies, both introduced by their former Hyksos adversaries, the light horse-drawn chariot and the powerful composite bow. The Egyptian chariot was built for speed and maneuverability, not shock impact. It had a two-man crew, a driver controlling the horses and a warrior fighting from the moving platform. It was not a scythed Hollywood chariot, it was a mobile missile platform. The primary weapon was the composite bow. Made from laminated layers of wood, horn and sinew, it was shorter, far more powerful, and had greater range and penetration than simple self-bows. From a stable, fast-moving chariot, a skilled archer could rain volleys of arrows on infantry, disrupting enemy formations before they even came within spear range. The chariot corps were the elite aristocratic arm of the army. The New Kingdom practiced combined arms tactics. Battles opened with chariot squadrons sweeping the enemy front. The infantry would then advance behind this mobile screen to engage the disordered enemy, while the chariots exploited success by pursuing fleeing enemies or striking the flanks and rear. The high point of expansion came under Thutmose III, the Napoleon of ancient Egypt. His first famous campaign ended at the Battle of Megiddo, where he crushed a coalition of rebellious Canaanite princes. The detailed annals of his campaigns are carved on the walls of Karnak, securing Levantine dominance for generations. But the Hittite Empire rose in Anatolia, a new, formidable rival. Seti I and his son, Rameses II, continued the struggle, setting the stage for a monumental confrontation over Syria and its valuable trade routes. The simmering conflict between the Egyptian and Hittite empires finally erupted into open war under the reign of the ambitious young pharaoh Rameses II. In the fifth year of his reign, around 1274 BC, Rameses marched north at the head of a massive army. The Hittite king, Muwatalli II, gathered a larger force, secretly positioning it to spring a trap. Rameses was deceived by Hittite spies and, believing Kadesh lightly defended, pushed ahead, leaving his other 3 divisions strung out over miles of road. As the Amun began to set up camp, the trap was sprung. Over 2,500 Hittite heavy chariots thundered across the Orontes River, smashing into the flank of the Ra division, still on the march. The Ra disintegrated in panic, and the chariots crashed into Ramesses' encampment. The Egyptian camp plunged into chaos. Ramesses then displayed legendary courage, rallying his bodyguard and launching a desperate counterattack. Just as his small force nearly collapsed, the Naarin Egyptian relief troops arrived. They struck the disorganized Hittite chariots in the rear, turning the tide. By day's end, both armies were exhausted. Ramesses held the field but failed to capture Kadesh. The battle was essentially a strategic stalemate. Back in Egypt, however, Ramesses portrayed it as a glorious personal victory, covering temple walls with epic reliefs and inscriptions celebrating his lone heroism. Royal propaganda that shaped our view for millennia. The most iconic weapon of the new kingdom was the khopesh. A sickle-shaped sword, it combined chopping power with the ability to hook and pull aside an enemy's shield. The infantry remained the true backbone of the army. The main body consisted of spearmen, forming the solid core of the battle line. They were supported by large regiments of archers whose powerful composite bows could unleash devastating volleys. Perhaps the most underappreciated element was logistical organization. An army of 20,000 campaigning hundreds of miles from home required a vast and continuous supply of food, water and equipment, a task managed by an army of scribes. This logistical mastery was the true unsung foundation of the pharaoh's imperial power. The long and storied history of ancient Egypt's military is a tale of remarkable adaptation and evolution. Shaped by geography, its core philosophy was defense. This was punctuated by the dramatic transformation of the new kingdom, which forged a professional imperial army to build a vast empire. Its legacy is subtle but profound. The peace treaty that followed the Kadesh campaign, the earliest surviving international accord, proved the limits of conquest and the power of negotiated settlement. From the copper-tipped spears that defended the pyramid builders to the swift chariots that clashed at Kadesh, the Egyptian military evolved to meet the challenges of its time, preserving a unique civilization for an astonishing length of time. The echoes of the pharaoh's army live on in the temples and tombs they protected, monuments that survived millennia as a testament to the civilization they defended. Imagine, if you will, a vast sun-drenched plain. The mighty Nile River flows nearby, its waters a ribbon of life through the arid land. Here on the west bank, opposite the modern city of Luxor, stand 2 giants, their immense figures carved from single blocks of stone. They sit silently on thrones, facing the rising sun. For more than 3,000 years they've watched empires rise and fall. They've seen countless dawns break over the Theban hills. These are the Colossi of Memnon, twin statues of a great pharaoh, frozen in time yet somehow alive-looking. They're the last remnants of a world long vanished. These figures are truly colossal. Each rises to about 60 feet, roughly the height of a modern 5-story building, carved from quartzite sandstone, an incredibly hard stone. Their weight is staggering, over 700 tons each. Imagine stacking more than 100 adult African elephants. For centuries they've sat, weathered by wind and sand, features worn, bodies cracked, but presence utterly commanding. Not merely statues, guardians of a forgotten gateway. These 2 statues did not always sit in such lonely isolation. Behind them stretched one of the largest and most opulent mortuary temples ever built in Egypt. It was the temple of Pharaoh Amenhotep III. The temple complex covered a vast area sprawling over nearly 87 acres. Today, almost nothing of it remains above ground. The annual floods of the Nile have washed it all away. Imagine this temple in its heyday. A long avenue lined with sphinxes would have led visitors towards the main entrance. Great courtyards filled with statues, columns opened up one after another, walls covered in vibrant reliefs depicting the pharaoh's great deeds. Priests would have performed daily rituals, their chants echoing through the sacred spaces. Only the two colossal quartzite statues were too massive, too heavy to be moved, and so they remain, solitary witnesses to the grandeur that once lay behind them. For centuries, the northern Colossus held a strange and captivating secret. Following a powerful earthquake in 27 BC, which shattered its upper half, the statue began to sing at dawn. As the first rays of sunlight warmed the cool morning stone, a strange musical sound would emerge from the fractured giant. It was described by early travellers as a sad, whistling moan, or sometimes like the snapping of a harp string. This phenomenon turned the silent stone giant into an ancient oracle. People travelled from all corners of the Roman Empire, from Greece to Rome, to hear the mysterious sound for themselves. The Greeks and the Romans re-identified the statues. They did not see the Egyptian pharaoh Amenhotep III. Instead, they saw Memnon, the mythical hero king of Ethiopia. In Greek mythology, Memnon was the son of Eos, the goddess of the dawn. He had fought bravely in the Trojan War, only to be slain by the great warrior Achilles. The Romans believed that the mournful sound was Memnon crying out to his mother, the dawn goddess, each morning as she greeted him with her light. Distinguished visitors, including several Roman emperors, made the pilgrimage. The Emperor Hadrian and his wife Sabina visited in 130 AD and heard the sound on multiple occasions. These visitors often left inscriptions on the statue's legs and base. Like a visitor's book carved in stone, tell us who came, when they came, and whether they were fortunate enough to hear the lament of Memnon. Around the year 199 AD, the Roman Emperor Septimius Severus had the fractured upper half of the statue repaired using several blocks of sandstone. His intention was to honor the oracle, but by repairing the statue, he inadvertently silenced it. Memnon fell silent and has remained so ever since. The creation of these stone giants began at a place called Gebel El Ahmar, near modern-day Cairo, over 400 miles to the north. They freed two monolithic blocks. The massive block was likely dragged on a wooden sledge from the quarry to the banks of the Nile River. At the river, the block was loaded onto an enormous barge. The journey up the Nile was a slow and majestic procession. Arriving at Thebes was only half the battle. They painstakingly hauled the blocks into their final positions. Once positioned, the final carving could begin. A process of subtraction revealed the divine figure from raw quartzite. The man immortalized in these two colossal statues was a real and incredibly powerful ruler, Pharaoh Amenhotep III. He reigned during the 18th dynasty, the golden age of ancient Egypt. His reign brought remarkable stability, unprecedented prosperity, and breathtaking artistic achievement. He was the greatest builder of his age. His construction projects were vast and numerous, transforming the landscape of Egypt. The most ambitious of all Amenhotep III's projects was his own mortuary temple. It was a place where Amenhotep III, the living man, could merge with his own divine image and be worshipped as a god on earth. Their purpose was to announce the divine nature of the temple's owner and to magically protect the sacred precinct that lay behind them. They were the eternal watchers at the threshold of the pharaoh's heavenly mansion. The Colossi of Memnon have endured more than just the passage of 3 millennia. They've survived centuries of natural disasters and human interference. Later pharaohs and Roman builders plundered the site. The annual flooding of the Nile River was a relentless enemy to the monuments on the floodplain. For centuries, folks believed the Grand Mortuary Temple was lost forever. But since 1998, a dedicated team of archaeologists has been working to uncover the secrets buried beneath the soil. The most exciting discoveries have been the hundreds of statues and statue fragments that have been pulled from the mud, especially the lioness-headed goddess Sekhmet. In a remarkable effort, they've lifted and restored several other colossal statues, placing them back in their original positions. The lost temple is slowly and honestly, quite magically, rising from the earth once more. Long after the Roman pilgrims had departed, the Colossi continued to exert a powerful pull on the human imagination, portraying them as sublime, melancholic figures brooding over a lost golden age. Today, millions of tourists from every corner of the globe make the journey to stand at their feet. Their silhouettes at sunrise have become a defining visual of a trip to Luxor. They have been oracles, landmarks, romantic ruins, and scientific treasures. They have watched over the land as beliefs, languages, and empires have turned to dust around them. The Colossi of Memnon are more than just stone and more than just history. They are a vital part of our shared human heritage. Silent sentinels watching over the eternal dawn of civilization. Their mystery and majesty an enduring gift to the world. They will continue to inspire awe and wonder for as long as they stand. If you look closer, the Colossi of Memnon have even more secrets to share, some only revealed in recent years. Once, these giants were not the sun-bleached sandstone we see today. Traces of vibrant pigment suggest their surfaces gleamed with colour. Deep reds, ochres, hints of blue, hints of green. Imagine sunlight dancing on painted crowns' royal regalia, transforming the statues into dazzling guardians of the temple. Centuries of visitors have left their own marks on these ancient titans. Greek travellers, Roman travellers carved their names and messages into the stone. These ancient graffitis still whisper stories of distant lands and long-forgotten hopes, etched for eternity at the feet of pharaohs. Today, the Colossi stand at the crossroads of past and future. Conservators, scientists protect them from erosion, pollution, the relentless march of time. 3D scanning, seismic monitoring experts peering inside the stone, mapping hidden cracks, mapping subtle shifts that could threaten their stability. Each scan helps preserve a digital replica, safeguarding their likeness even as the originals age. Recent discoveries continue to surprise. New fragments, once believed lost, have surfaced, adding missing pieces to the puzzle of the mortuary temple. Were there once matching statues to the north and south? Could undiscovered chambers lie beneath the sand? Modern tourists gaze up in wonder, becoming part of the Colossi's living story, one still unfolding, layer by layer in the Egyptian sun. The silent sentinels endure as ever-evolving witnesses to the dreams and questions of every new generation. Few know that these ancient guardians may have served as celestial markers. Some researchers believe the statues were aligned to greet the rising sun at solstice, their massive forms casting long shadows that tracked the passage of time. Inscriptions found nearby hint at rituals performed at dawn, priests invoking the power of the gods as sunlight touched the stone faces. Were the Colossi silent astronomers watching the heavens as well as the Nile? In recent years, restoration efforts have sparked passionate controversy. Advanced cleaning techniques promise to revive lost details, but some experts warned, could aggressive methods erase precious traces of pigment or ancient tool marks? A delicate balance emerged, preserving the statues for the future without silencing their past. Modern technology is peeling back layers of mystery. Meanwhile, microanalysis of the sandstone has traced its origins to distant quarries, raising new questions about the logistics and labour behind their creation. Perhaps most surprising, scientists have uncovered evidence that the Colossi's voices might not be entirely silent today. Under certain conditions, as the desert cools at dawn, faint vibrations have been recorded, echoes of the ancient singing phenomenon, now understood as a rare interplay of temperature, stone and air. Each discovery deepens our fascination. The Colossi of Memnon remain not just relics, but partners in a timeless dialogue. As the sun rises over the Theban plain, The Colossi of Memnon stand not only as sentinels of Egypt's ancient past, but as treasures cherished by all humanity. Today, these monumental figures are protected as part of the Theban necropolis, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, recognized for its unparalleled historical and cultural significance. This prestigious status brings the eyes of the world to Luxor, and with them a global commitment to preservation. International experts, local artisans and passionate volunteers unite under the blue and white banner of UNESCO, working tirelessly to conserve not just the colossi, but the entire necropolis, home to the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, temples, tombs. Sweeping aerial views reveal the scale of this sacred landscape, while close-ups show careful hands at work, restoring weathered stone, monitoring environmental changes, and ensuring that every detail is protected for generations yet to come. UNESCO plaques stand as silent promises, reminders that the story of the colossi of ancient Egypt itself belongs to people everywhere. Through global stewardship and shared pride, the Colossi of Memnon endure. Their shadows stretch into the future, icons of resilience, memory and hope. In safeguarding these giants, we honor the dreams of the past and inspire the promise of tomorrow. Long before the modern world recognized the Colossi of Memnon as a universal heritage, these monumental statues captivated the imaginations of distant civilizations. Among the most enchanted were the ancient Greeks, travelers, scholars, and adventurers. Through the eyes of Greek visitors, the colossi became more than silent sentinels. They were transformed into legends. Greek historians, poets, and explorers like Strabo and Pausanias recorded their awe in vivid detail. Some arrived at dawn hoping to hear the mysterious singing of the northern statue. They believed it was the voice of Memnon, son of Eos, goddess of the dawn, greeting his mother with a mournful melody at sunrise. Manuscripts and ancient sketches reveal Greek artists trying to capture the statue's grandeur. Charcoal strokes tracing enigmatic features that seem both familiar and otherworldly. Greek myths blended with Egyptian history, weaving new stories around the colossi. Tales of Memnon as a tragic hero of the Trojan War, his spirit lingering in stone, bridging two great cultures. This fascination sparked exchanges of art, language and belief. Greek and Egyptian craftsmen shared techniques, and Hellenistic motifs began to appear in local art. The colossi featured in Greek writings, inspiring generations of artists and thinkers, echoing through the centuries as symbols of mystery and connection. Statues bathed in golden light, we see them anew, not just as Egyptian marvels, but as beacons that once drew the curious and the wise from across the ancient world. In their silent watch, the colossi of Memnon remind us of the timeless human quest, to seek, to wonder, to share in the marvels of our past. The Nile, a river that flows north, bringing life to a desert. For thousands of years it shaped Egypt, its floods both awe-inspiring and essential. From fertile delta to arid desert, the Nile is a lifeline. The Nile's bounty allowed for the development of one of the world's first civilizations. Ancient Egypt, a land of pharaohs, pyramids and powerful gods, emerged from the fertile banks of this mighty river. The Nile's waters provided sustenance, its floods brought fertility, and its navigable waters facilitated trade and communication. This allowed for the growth of cities, the development of complex social structures, and the flourishing of art, science, and religion. The ancient Egyptians lived in harmony with the river's rhythm, adapting their lives to its ebb and flow. Their calendar, their agriculture, and even their beliefs were intertwined with the Nile's cycles. It was more than just a river. It was the very foundation of their existence. To the ancient Egyptians, the Nile was not merely a river, it was a divine entity, a god whose benevolence sustained their very existence. They called him Hapi, the god of the annual flood, depicted as a benevolent figure with a large belly and pendulous breasts, symbolizing fertility and abundance. Temples were erected in his honor, and elaborate rituals were performed to appease him and ensure the timely arrival of the annual flood. Offerings of food, flowers, and precious metals were made, and hymns were sung praising his life-giving waters. The pharaoh, considered the divine ruler and intermediary between the gods and the people, played a crucial role in these rituals. His connection to the divine was believed to influence the Nile's favor, ensuring the prosperity of the land and its people. The Nile's annual flood cycle dictated life in ancient Egypt. It marked the start of the agricultural year. Egyptians created a calendar based on its 3 seasons. Akhet, the inundation season, was a time of celebration. The Nile's silt renewed the land's vitality. Pere, the growing season, followed. Shemu, the harvest season, marked abundance and gratitude. The cultural significance of the Nile is deeply etched into the very fabric of ancient Egyptian civilization. It is evident in their art, their architecture, and their beliefs. Tomb paintings depict scenes of life along the riverbanks, showcasing the abundance it brought. Monumental architecture, such as the pyramids and temples, were often aligned with the Nile's flow, further emphasizing its centrality in their worldview. The orientation of these structures suggests a deep reverence for the river's journey from south to north, mirroring the sun's path across the sky. The Nile's influence extended even to the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that the soul, after death, journeyed westward across the Nile, mirroring the sun's journey into the underworld. This belief is reflected in the layout of tombs and the placement of funerary goods. The ancient Egyptians wove intricate myths to explain the Nile's floods. One such myth tells of Isis and her beloved Osiris. Osiris, murdered by his brother Set, was dismembered. Isis searched tirelessly for his remains. Her tears overflowed the Nile, causing the annual flood. Each year her tears replenished the land, bringing life to Egypt. Another legend tells of Sekhmet, the fierce lion goddess of war and healing, and her role in the Nile's floods. According to the myth, Sekhmet, enraged by the disrespect shown to her father, the sun god Ra, unleashed her fiery wrath upon humanity. Her fury was so intense that she scorched the earth, turning the Nile blood-red. Fearing for the annihilation of humankind, Ra intervened, tricking Sekhmet into drinking a vast quantity of beer mixed with red ochre, resembling blood. Intoxicated, Sekhmet's rage subsided and she transformed into Hathor, the benevolent goddess of love and music. The red-tinged beer, symbolizing the floodwaters, flowed from her, replenishing the Nile and saving humanity from her wrath. The Nile's significance transcended the earthly realm, playing a crucial role in the Egyptian afterlife beliefs. They believed that the Nile flowed through the underworld, the Duat, providing sustenance to the souls residing there. The deceased, embarking on their perilous journey through the underworld, relied on the Nile's waters for sustenance and guidance. Funerary texts, such as the Book of the Dead, contain spells and hymns meant to ensure safe passage across the celestial Nile. The Nile, in this context, represented not only physical sustenance but also spiritual renewal and rebirth. Just as it brought life to the land of Egypt, it also nourished the souls in the afterlife, ensuring their continued existence in the realm beyond death. The lifeblood of ancient Egypt, The Nile's annual flood was a spectacle as predictable as the rising sun. Every year, like clockwork, the river would swell, engulfing its banks and transforming the arid landscape into a fertile expanse of water. This inundation, far from being feared, was eagerly anticipated. The ancient Egyptians, with their keen sense of observation, had developed a deep understanding of the river's rhythm. They knew that the flood, though appearing destructive, was the source of their prosperity. The floodwaters, originating from the heavy rains in the Ethiopian highlands, would arrive in Egypt around June, reaching their peak in September. As the waters receded, they left behind a rich deposit of silt, a fertile layer of sediment that acted as a natural fertilizer. The ancient Egyptians recognized the source of their bounty, referring to the southern lands as Taseti, meaning the land of the bow. They understood that the floods were a gift from these distant lands. Expeditions were sent south to explore the river's origins, seeking to understand the forces that governed its flow. These journeys, though fraught with peril, provided valuable knowledge about the Nile's tributaries and the annual rainfall patterns that dictated the flood's intensity. The Egyptians developed sophisticated systems to measure the Nile's rise and fall, constructing nilometers, graduated stone structures placed within the river or nearby wells. These structures allowed them to predict the height of the flood and anticipate the year's harvest. The Nile's annual flood cycle, predictable and life-giving, shaped the rhythm of life in ancient Egypt. It dictated the agricultural calendar, the construction projects, and even the religious festivals. During the inundation, when the fields were submerged, farmers would engage in other activities, like repairing their tools, tending to their livestock, or working on construction projects for the pharaoh. The flood season provided a period of relative respite from the demanding work of agriculture. As the floodwaters receded, the land, rejuvenated by the rich silt deposits, was ready for planting. Farmers would sow their crops, anticipating a bountiful harvest in the months to come. The success of their harvest depended on the Nile's generosity, a testament to their symbiotic relationship with the river. The lifeblood of ancient Egypt's agriculture was not just the Nile's water, but the rich, fertile silt it deposited with each annual flood. This black, nutrient-rich sediment, carried from the highlands of Ethiopia, held the key to the civilization's agricultural success. Unlike the alluvial soils of other river valleys, which often required years of cultivation to become fertile, the Nile's silt was immediately productive. As the floodwaters receded, they left behind a layer of this fertile sediment ready to nourish a variety of crops. The Egyptians recognized the silt's importance, referring to it as Kemet, which means black land, a testament to its fertility and their connection to it. This black soil stood in stark contrast to the Deshret, the red land of the surrounding desert, highlighting its life-giving properties. To maximize the benefits of the Nile's annual inundation, the ancient Egyptians developed an ingenious system of basin irrigation. This method involved dividing the land into a series of rectangular basins, surrounded by earthen dikes, to capture and hold the floodwaters. As the Nile rose, water would be channeled into these basins through a network of canals, carefully controlled to ensure even distribution. The floodwaters, laden with silt, would be allowed to sit in these basins for several weeks, saturating the soil and depositing their fertile load. Once the floodwaters receded, the basins, now filled with moist, fertile soil, were ready for planting. Farmers would sow a variety of crops, including barley, wheat, flax, and vegetables, taking advantage of the naturally irrigated and fertilized land. Egyptians developed perennial irrigation for year-round cultivation. This allowed them to grow crops even during the dry season. The shaduf, a lever system, was commonly used to lift water. Canals and ditches channeled water from the Nile to fields. These ingenious irrigation techniques, coupled with the fertile Nile silt, allowed the ancient Egyptians to cultivate a diverse range of crops, sustaining a large population and contributing to the civilization's prosperity. The staple crops of ancient Egypt were barley and wheat, used to make bread, beer and porridge. Flax, another important crop, was used to produce linen, a valuable textile for clothing and other purposes. Vegetables such as onions, garlic, lentils and lettuce added variety to their diet. The Egyptians also cultivated a variety of fruits, including grapes, figs, dates and pomegranates, which provided essential vitamins and sweetness. These fruits, often depicted in tomb paintings and offerings to the gods, were highly valued and considered symbols of abundance and prosperity. The Nile, once a force of nature, entered a new era in the 20th century, the age of dams. The Aswan High Dam, completed in 1970, altered the river's natural flood cycle. It brought significant changes, including irrigation, hydroelectric power and flood control. However, the dam's construction came at a cost. The silt now trapped no longer replenished farmlands downstream. The end of the natural flood cycle brought about a new set of challenges. The once fertile soils, deprived of the annual silt deposits, became increasingly saline and less productive over time. The absence of the flood's natural flushing action led to the build-up of salts in the soil, impacting crop yields. The construction of the Aswan High Dam, while providing undeniable benefits, also had ecological consequences. The Nile Delta, once a vibrant ecosystem nourished by the annual influx of nutrients, began to erode, deprived of the silt that once replenished its shores. The dam also impacted the populations of certain fish species, like the sardine, which relied on the annual flood cycle for their breeding grounds. The altered flow of the Nile disrupted their migration patterns, leading to a decline in their numbers. The Nile, the river that gave birth to Egyptian civilization, continues to flow, a silent witness to time's passage. Its legacy is etched into the soul of Egypt. The ancient Egyptians' reverence and ingenious methods inspire awe. The Nile's story reminds us of nature's power and our responsibility. Herodotus possessed a keen eye for observation and a passion for collecting stories. He sought out learned men and women, engaging them in lively discussions. He listened intently to tales whispered in marketplaces and songs sung in royal courts. He believed in the power of first-hand experience, venturing into remote regions to witness life in all its diversity. Herodotus understood that to truly comprehend the world, one had to explore its every corner. Egypt, with its ancient pyramids that have stood the test of time, towering majestically over the desert landscape, and enigmatic hieroglyphs that tell stories of gods, kings and everyday life, held a particular allure for Herodotus. It was a land steeped in history, its origins lost to the mists of time, where every stone and ruin whispered secrets of a bygone era. Herodotus was captivated by the grandeur of its monuments, the towering statues that seemed to touch the sky, and the complexity of its civilization, a society that thrived with bustling marketplaces and intricate social structures. Herodotus immersed himself in Egyptian culture, engaging with priests, scribes, and ordinary people, learning from their daily lives and traditions. He learned about their religious beliefs, their social customs, and their understanding of the cosmos, which was deeply intertwined with their daily existence. He was fascinated by their stories of gods and pharaohs, tales of divine rulers and mythical beings, of creation and the afterlife, where elaborate burial practices ensured a journey to the next world. He recognized that Egypt offered a unique perspective on the human experience, a civilization that had mastered the art of living in harmony with the natural and supernatural worlds. Herodotus was a pioneer in the field of history, often referred to as the father of history, due to his groundbreaking work in documenting the past. However, his methods differed greatly from the rigorous standards of modern scholarship. Unlike today's historians, who rely on a combination of primary sources, archaeological evidence, and peer-reviewed research, Herodotus had to navigate a world where written records were scarce and often unreliable. He relied heavily on oral accounts, gathering stories from a wide range of sources. These included local storytellers, travelers, and merchants, each with their own version of events. Herodotus understood that history was often passed down through generations, shaped by the memories and perspectives of those who recounted it. This oral tradition was a double-edged sword. While it preserved the essence of events, it also allowed for embellishments and alterations over time. The stories he collected were like pieces of a puzzle, each one offering a glimpse into the past, but none providing a complete picture. The hieroglyphics and inscriptions he encountered were invaluable, yet they too were subject to interpretation. Herodotus recognized the subjective nature of his sources, but believed that by collecting multiple perspectives, he could approach a semblance of truth. He was aware that each account was colored by the teller's own experiences and biases. While Herodotus valued first-hand observation, he also relied on the interpretations of local guides and experts. These individuals provided him with insights that he could not have gained on his own. He understood that these guides and experts had spent their lives immersed in the culture and history of their land, making their knowledge indispensable. He consulted with Egyptian priests who possessed a deep knowledge of their history and religion. These priests were the keepers of sacred texts and oral traditions, offering Herodotus a wealth of information. He sought out Greek merchants and travelers who had spent years in Egypt, absorbing its culture. These individuals provided a unique perspective, bridging the gap between Greek and Egyptian worlds. He recognized that to fully understand a place, one had to rely on the knowledge of those who knew it best. This meant listening to the voices of the people who lived there, who had experienced its history firsthand. Herodotus's approach to history was not without its flaws. His reliance on oral accounts and second-hand information sometimes led him astray. He sometimes struggled to differentiate between fact and legend, accepting fantastical stories at face value. These tales, while captivating, often blurred the line between history and myth. He acknowledged the limitations of his own knowledge, often presenting conflicting accounts side by side. This approach allowed readers to see the diversity of perspectives, but also highlighted the uncertainties inherent in his work. However, his willingness to embrace uncertainty and to present multiple perspectives distinguished him as a historian. He was not afraid to admit when he did not know the full story, and he left room for future scholars to build upon his work. He understood that history was not simply a collection of facts, but a complex tapestry woven from memory, interpretation, and imagination. This holistic approach allowed him to capture the richness and complexity of human experience, making his work timeless and invaluable. Egypt, in the eyes of Herodotus, was a land of wonders, both familiar and strange. As he journeyed through this ancient civilization, he was struck by the unique blend of natural beauty and human ingenuity that defined the landscape. He marveled at the Nile's annual floods, which brought life to the arid land. These floods were not just a natural phenomenon, but a lifeline for the people, ensuring the fertility of the soil and the prosperity of the nation. He described the Egyptians' ingenious irrigation systems, which transformed the desert into fertile fields. These systems were a testament to their advanced engineering skills and their ability to adapt to their environment. He observed their agricultural practices, noting their cultivation of wheat, barley and flax. These crops were not only staples of their diet, but also essential for their economy, providing materials for trade and daily life. Herodotus was impressed by the Egyptians' ability to harness the power of nature to sustain their civilization. Their agricultural techniques were sustainable and efficient, allowing them to thrive in a challenging environment. Herodotus was equally fascinated by the Egyptians' cultural practices. He witnessed their vibrant festivals, intricate rituals, and the daily routines that reflected their deep-seated beliefs and values. He described their reverence for the Nile, which they believed was the source of all life. The river was central to their religion and mythology, and they held numerous ceremonies to honor its vital role in their existence. He observed their elaborate burial rituals, including the mummification of their dead and the construction of elaborate tombs. These practices were deeply rooted in their belief in the afterlife and the importance of preserving the body for the journey beyond. He noted their fascination with astronomy, their development of a calendar based on the solar year, and their construction of massive pyramids aligned with the stars. These achievements demonstrated their advanced understanding of the cosmos and their desire to connect with the divine. Herodotus recognized the Egyptians' deep connection to their environment and their reverence for the natural world. This connection was evident in their art, architecture, and daily practices, all of which reflected a profound respect for the forces of nature. He observed their respect for animals, particularly cats, which they considered sacred. Cats were not only pets, but also symbols of protection and grace, often depicted in their art and associated with the goddess Bastet. He noted their belief in the afterlife and their elaborate preparations for the journey into the underworld. These preparations included not only mummification, but also the provision of goods, amulets, and inscriptions to guide and protect the deceased in the afterlife. Herodotus understood that the Egyptians' worldview was fundamentally different from that of the Greeks, shaped by their unique environment and their ancient traditions. This difference was reflected in their art, religion, and social structures, offering a rich tapestry of cultural diversity that fascinated and inspired him.